Hello, everybody. Welcome to Stacking Triggers, I guess, which is a show about us complaining about Magic the Gathering because we talked about it on my other podcast, and our wives and girlfriends hate us for it and said no more. So we're shunting this off into its own thing, and we'll never talk about Magic the Gathering on Netflix and Swill ever again. I am Caleb.
And I am Dan. I am the other host of Netflix and Swill, whose girlfriend complained that there was 14 minutes of Magic the Gathering talk, and that was predominantly the reason why we're doing this in the first place.
And I'm Bill. I don't have a podcast.
And Bill, of course, is the result of a laboratory experiment where a group of scientists very nearly created a creature that would be a simulacrum of human-level intelligence.
They spun off that story into Project Metal Beast.
Oof.
Playing on Magic Arena makes me feel like Project Meta Beast.
Mm-hmm. Let me tell you what.
That's nothing.
It could be something. You never know.
I don't know. We'll get into it, I guess, but like I kind of hate the current meta and the current standard and like the last 8 standards and Magic Arena, but it's also a pandemic, so that's how I play the game.
True. If only they'd bring like a real version of Commander, I feel like you'd actually be happy about the game.
Oh, maybe. I don't know. The economy is still like wantonly predatory and toxic. I say as a person who paid them $100 for fake currency in the game like 2 weeks ago. So.
Yep. All right.
Well, okay.
Yeah, I guess that's banter. Fuck it. Who cares?
Yeah.
All right. Moving right along. Let's I guess talk about some Magic cards. So I know you guys were excited to tell me about some decks that you've been playing. We'll start with Bill because he's brand new to the game. And I think this show's kind of gonna be geared more towards like new players, I guess.
Sure.
Casuals, and Bill's a filthy casual. And
Bill is the filthiest of casuals.
Yeah, and he has one deck, and somehow has made it into gold rank in Arena.
I am the most casual of filth, and here I built a deck around Finn the Fangbearer.
So you're playing Death Touch Tribal.
Yeah. I really enjoyed the mechanic of poison and only having to hit the opponent 5 times. If you can get it off, it's a super quick game and you win hard. Also, nobody below gold knows how to counter it for some reason.
That's troubling, because like every time that I've played the Death Touch Tribal deck, as soon as Finn hits the board, everybody targets him with their removal spells.
Right. But I think the thing is, like, they look at it and they just go, oh, that's interesting. I guess I won't use any of my removal stuff.
Nobody seems to hover over and read the cards from what I've been seeing.
Yeah, that sounds like gold, silver, gold, bronze, iron.
Yeah, like bronze and silver, nobody was really hovering over to read what it did, and I don't even think they read what his ability did when it flashed up on the screen.
Oh, wow.
So that made me upset.
Yeah. I don't know. There are another common theme of our discussions is probably going to be the fact that there's a lot of smooth brain people playing on Arena. So Finn the Fangbearer's ability, like you said, so whenever a creature with Death Touch deals, it specifically says combat damage to an opponent, they get 2 poison counters, and if you have 10 poison counters, you you lose the game.
Right.
So that's an old thing from Phyrexia that poison hasn't been on a card in a very long time. And now poison counters are back in a set where one of the Phyrexian Praetors is actually printed on a new card in the set. Conspiracy? Fucking A right it is.
So, Bill, I'm looking at your deck, and you're running like a few random one-ofs, and I feel like that's fine, but and I'm not sure.
I think that's just a lack of wild cards.
I think you might be right, but I'm looking at my one deck, and I see you're not running any of the gates. Like I don't know if there's a black-green like flip gate that you can run. They're rare wild cards that you would need, or maybe even mythic wild cards that you would need. But that's already like immediately one thing I could point out as to you making a change to for this deck.
Yeah, that could probably be a helpful thing for me.
I don't know. I like the Binding of the Old Gods in there. I considered that for my version of this deck, but like mine has kind of a Reanimator sub theme. So I run what the fuck is it called? Call of the Crypt Dweller, I think. Hang on, let me look this up real quick.
To be 100% honest, Binding of the Old Gods, it's in there for the first two parts. It's in there for the removal, and it's in there to get the extra land. Sadly, the last part, the last part of it is kind of useless with this deck because 90% of everything has Death Touch already.
Right, but even still, when you're playing it for what does the first stage do again? I forget what the first stage is.
Yeah, first stage is removal.
Call of the Death Dweller. That's what it's called.
Yeah, but so when you're doing like when you have removal on there for 4 cost, and then you get a land the next turn for free, like really, what the third thing doesn't matter as much to me. Because I mean, you're already running 4 murder, which is a converted mana cost of 3. So in reality, you're paying 4 mana to murder something and search a land, which is fine.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's very nice.
So, Bill, let me drop this on you. This is some tech that you can use your uncommon wild cards for on Arena. So, Call of the Death Dweller. It's a sorcery from Ikoria. It is 2 and a black for return up to 2 target creature cards with total converted mana cost 3 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. Put a Death Touch counter on either of them. Then put a Menace counter on either of them. So what you can do with this is, let's say you have your Moss Viper or like Foulmire Knight or, whatever, like 1 CMC Death Touch creature. You have one of those in your graveyard and you have Finn in your graveyard. So you play this, you get them both out onto the battlefield, and you can give one of them Menace, which means that they can only be blocked by 2 creatures.
Mm-hmm.
So it gives them some evasion, makes it easier to get in and do that sweet damage and get those poison counters on there.
Awesome. Yeah. I just looked up the card. I like it. I'm wondering what I should remove for it because I do know there's a couple. There's a couple things in here that maybe shouldn't belong.
Mind Rot.
Okay, maybe
Mind Rot immediately.
Maybe Mind Rot. I don't know. I like Mind Rot.
Probably
because...
Iron Scale Hydra. That's not really on brand for you.
Yeah,
it's not.
But that doesn't really help.
Yeah.
You. The other thing that kind of doesn't.
If you want to run some like big creatures like that, I think you should go for something more like Questing Beast, which is a 4 CMC 4/4. I think it's haste, Death Touch, Vigilance.
That's a lot of things.
And it has some other ability. It's pretty cool. But that it's also a legendary creature, so that'd probably be like a 2 of.
Yeah.
Ooh, yeah. There's a couple other things in here too, right? So Expedition Skulker, that's just kind of a 2 CMC for a 2/2. I mean, it can get Death Touch, but I also then need the not the Vengeful Reaper, sorry.
Vargoth.
But Vargoth, Bloodshire, yeah. Bloodskyshire.
Yeah,
Sire.
I feel like, because that's a legendary creature, you're only running it at 2, you're running Skulker at 2, so like it's highly situational that you get Skulker out there. I think that might be a potential cut down the road.
There's also the Elvish War Master.
All right, listen to I looked up the actual full text for Questing Beast. Listen to this spice. So it's 2 green for a legendary creature beast. It's a 4/4. It has Vigilance, Death Touch, Haste. Questing Beast can't be blocked by creatures with power 2 or less. That's evasion, helps you get in for the Death Touch damage.
Mm-hmm.
Combat damage that would be dealt by creatures you control can't be prevented. Whenever Questing Beast deals combat damage to an opponent, it deals that much damage to target planeswalker that opponent controls.
That sounds spicy.
Yeah, so if somebody, basically you don't have to choose between hitting a planeswalker and a player. You can, you gotta do both.
You can just do both.
Oh, speaking of planeswalker, there's one card in here that I absolutely love that we haven't even touched on yet. And that's the Hooded Blightfang.
Yeah, this is probably your spiciest card, honestly.
Yeah, the Hooded Blightfang in here is actually won me a couple games. Just because if you can get 2 on the board, what it does is it will...
Yeah, every time, and you don't even have to deal damage. The trigger is whenever a Death Touch creature attacks, and you drain 1 life, gain 1 life.
Yeah, I've gotten well above 30 life points, just with 2 Hooded Blightfangs on. What I also like about it is that Death Touch attacks, I think it says destroys the Planewalker.
Yep.
So that's also very nice.
That's Hooded Blightfang's other lesser known ability, but yeah, it's a cool card. Lots of people are talking about this card in particular. Not really, but I don't know. I got actually 2 copies of it when I got my Core Set 2021 booster box, and I was like, oh man, the first deck that I ever built when I started playing the game was black and green Death Touch, and it was hot garbage. It's like, this card actually seems good, so I want to do a Death Touch tribal deck. And it kind of worked. But then, a couple sets came out, and they gave us the tools to make Death Touch tribal, actually really good, so...
Yeah, I feel pretty good for this being the first deck I've made that kind of actually works, or at least it feels like it works because I got to gold. So
yeah, wait till you see how you feel when you actually learn how to play the game.
when you learn a second deck.
I definitely do want to build a second one, but we'll see how that goes.
All right.
Yeah, decks are like Lay's potato chips. If you have too many of them, you're probably fat.
I have so many free ones right now.
Well, that's true, but those are all fucking terrible. Every one of them on Magic Arena is terrible.
What are you talking about? Mutation Station's fun.
Yeah, the mutate one's pretty fun, actually.
I may not have that deck. Let's be honest.
It's very fun. It's
all right. Well, whenever I have that available to me, I will try to play it. All right, let's talk about my deck, which is Azorius Control. Now, if you're familiar with the game, you know that Wizards of the Coast is putting out these challenge decks, or these challenger decks, in late March for, I guess they're quote-unquote competitive decks for, new players, or just competitive decks for cheap. I did a quick cost analysis based off of prices on TCG Player, which, Caleb, you of all people would know what the relationship is with, TCG Player and, actual prices.
Yeah, I love TCG Player, honestly. That's where I get most of my, paper Magic stuff from.
Okay.
Because, if you have a local game store where you're at, obviously you should support them. But the cool thing about TCG Player is that when you buy there, you are supporting local game stores. Because it's basically eBay for Magic cards.
And they also have this cool function where you can just put in, number of copies of a card that you want. You can basically copy and paste a deck list into... I don't know what the tool exactly is called, but you can copy and paste an entire deck list.
Yeah, there's
in there,
the mass ad thing.
Yeah, and they will break down the card prices. So all the challenger decks that are coming out next month range anywhere from $50 to $80. and you can buy them for 30. So in terms of cost value, pretty good. And this was one of them. Now, I did make one change immediately. They have in the deck box that they're going to send the cards out with. It has the lands that come in tapped and then give you 1 life. I immediately remove those for the blue-white gates, the flippable lands, because those are infinitely better than having a tapped land and life.
The pathway lands.
Yeah, that's it. The pathway lands. So I replaced the pathway lands.
Dude, the pathway lands are fucking great.
They're too good. You should never play, in my opinion, the life lands. Never do it. It's a waste of time. And then also I cut a couple copies of their other 3-cost counter spells and put in a total of 4 copies of Saw It Coming, which is out of Kaldheim. It's a foretell counter spell for 3, but you can foretell it for 1 in a blue. Which
God, Saw It Coming is so. Saw It Coming made me love mono blue control again.
So those are the only changes I've made. I've been playing it a bit. It really struggles against Mimir Rogue, or as I lovingly call it, Virgin Rogue. Like basically,
which is also another one of the challenge decks. So
it is
good for you.
Yeah, but. So I need to improve the early game on it. I know it's a control deck, so that, control decks early game, not really synonymous, but I feel like I lose to green, like Stompy Green, which is another one of the challenger decks, basically because I don't get off to a decent enough start. So I don't know. I'll post the deck list in the show notes, as well as Bill's deck list in the show notes, so that way you guys can check it out and maybe suggest some things for me to do in order to fix this deck.
Bill's dickless in the show notes.
Yeah, he is dickless.
Hey, come on now. That's not true.
But do you guys have any suggestions for what? Well, and by you guys, I mean Caleb. Do you have any suggestions? Because Bill only knows one deck right now.
What I would really like to hear is kind of how you play it, right? Because I kind of said my thing was you get Finn out there, and that's how you win the game. So how do you win the game with this control deck?
Basically, Shark Typhoon is a winner. Control is you fuck up all of your opponent's plans, and then you play a big bomb at the end of it.
Correct.
So you curve out, you control, wipe the board. Keep your opponent from being able to play the game of Magic, essentially. And then at the end, you just drop something huge that's going to win you the game outright. That's basically your game plan in Control.
Yeah, that's it.
Got it. Because I am very new, so I don't know things.
Yeah, we'll do, probably an episode on deck theory. This is kind of freeform. This is all just, us bullshitting about stuff, but, We'll get to a point where we're talking about actual things.
Right. Yeah.
Something that you may consider for this, which
I have plenty of wild cards, so I can do whatever you think I should do.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if the payoff's there enough, because it's Linvala Shield of Seagate. Which is from Zendikar Rising. So she's a 3/3 legendary creature, Angel Wizard, for 1 white blue, so 3 mana. She's a 3/3 flyer. This is where I don't know necessarily that the payoff's there, but she uses the party mechanic from that set. So she is at the beginning of combat on your turn if you have a full party, which means you have a wizard, a warrior, a cleric, and a rogue on board. Mm-hmm. You get to choose target non-land permanent an opponent controls, and until your next turn, it can't attack or block, and its activated abilities can't be activated. But this is the part that actually matters. You can sacrifice Linvala to choose Hexproof or Indestructible, and creatures that you control gain that ability until the end of turn.
Yeah.
So you can put her down on board and have like a few other creatures and stuff that you want to attack with. And then like if your opponent has a decently sized board too, and like they've also been building their board, you can sacrifice Linvala to give your creatures indestructible, and then Shatter the Sky or Doomscar to wipe the board, but your creatures don't die because they're indestructible.
Right.
So it becomes like a one-sided board wipe. Like I said, like it's kind of more of like a payoff card for having a full party, but like I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. It might be good. And like worst case scenario, it's a 3/3 flyer
for 3. So it's a bear.
Yeah.
Well, technically,
bears are
you
2/2s for 2.
Well, you get what I mean, though, is that
yeah.
for its cost,
its
body is good.
Right. It's what you would expect. So
yeah,
very cool. I like Amiria's Call. That's just a really cool card.
Oh yeah, well yeah, because it does exactly what you're saying, but for more mana, basically, which is that you play 2 4/4 white angels, and then all your creatures gain indestructible until the next turn. So it's a lot of mana to do that. That's like what?
Oh yeah, you're not gonna Amiria's Call into a fucking Doomscar.
Yeah, or even Shadow the Sky.
Unless like both players are terrible and the game has gone on forever.
Yeah, because even for Shadow the Sky, that's 8 mana, which means for Doomscar it's 9 to do the full play. So you're hoping the game has gone on for 9 turns and you've curved out exactly in order to pull off this exact kind of play.
Man, these challenger decks are spicy though. I've been playing mono red aggro because I'm a scumbag.
Yes.
So I have a version of this that I build on Arena, and I have a version of it that I built in paper.
Mm-hmm.
The one that I built in paper was like basically just because I want to use the card Chandra's Incinerator, which like I like a lot, but I don't think is probably actually that good. So for my lands, I'm running 20 snow-covered mountains, because Snowlands came back for Kaldheim.
Right.
And the reason that I'm running all snow-covered lands is because I'm also running 4 of Faceless Haven, which is a land that you can pay 3 snow mana to turn into a 4/3 creature with vigilance. So sometimes, you can just pop in an unexpected blocker when somebody attacks, or, they forget that your land can just turn into a guy and kill them. And you win the game that way. So, but then I'm doing 4 Fervent Champion, which is a 1/1 haste first strike creature for 1 mana.
Oh, I hate that thing.
Which is pretty good. It also has, whenever it attacks another attacking knight you control, gets +1/+0 till end of turn. So if you have 2 of them, they become 2/1 first strikes. And then equip abilities that target it cost 3 less to activate, which will be relevant for a card that I tell you about in a little bit later. So after that, I've got some shocks. Sometimes, like, there's versions of this deck, like, since I'm running all the Snowlands, there's versions of this deck that use Frostbite, which basically has the same effect as Shock, like deal 2 damage, but Frostbite is it'll deal 3 if you control 3 or more snow permanents, which is the Snowlands. I run Shock because it can go to the face instead of only being able to target creatures.
Yeah,
but it's 1 mana for 2 damage, which is pretty good.
Yeah, you want the flexibility.
Yeah. I'm also running, because, I want to go to face and do damage directly. I'm running 4 of Royal Eruption, which is 1 in a red. It deals 3 damage to any target. And it also has Kicker for 5. So if you pay 7 mana, which is way too much of an investment, but it deals 5 damage instead. So if you do get to that point and you have nothing else, you can just kick it up and kind of kill somebody with that. I don't know why you ever would, though. And then Bone Crusher Giant is pretty good. He's a creature from Eldraine. He has adventure. So for 1 and a red, the instant part of it just deals 2 damage to a target. And then after you do that, you can cast it as a creature too, which is pretty good. Magda Brazen Outlaw is a new one. It's a 2/1 legendary creature elf berserker. Other dwarves you control get +1/+0. That's not really relevant in this version of the deck, because I'm using her for her second ability, which is whenever she becomes tapped, you create a treasure token, which is just an artifact that you can use to get extra mana. So just kind of ramps you up and lets you do your big cool stuff later for cheaper. So like this is like the version that I built in paper. I have 1 copy of Embercleave and 1 copy of Terror from the Peaks, which like are kind of my game winners, but like I didn't want to, like, Terror from the Peaks is $35.
Good God.
And Embercleave is $10. And like I don't really want to buy those right now, because like Embercleave's gonna rotate out in a couple more sets, and then like Terror of the Peaks is like, it's good, but it's not like fucking finish my deck for $90 good.
Right.
So I'm just running 1 of each of those. Embercleave is an equipment for 6 mana. But like it has flash, so you can cast it during combat, and the mana cost is reduced by how many creatures you are attacking with. So what you do is you build up your board a little bit, and attack with a few creatures, and then one of them gets Embercleave and kills everything. And Embercleave gives +1/+1, double strike, and trample.
Good God.
So much.
There's a reason that card's played as much as it is, and it's because it's fucking good. And then, like I said, I wanted to play Chandra's Incinerator. So, like, the paper version has that. It is a 6/6 elemental for 5 and a red, but it costs X less to cast, where X is the total amount of non-combat damage dealt to your opponents this turn. So this is why I'm running all the shocks and the Royal Eruptions and the stomps on Bone Crusher Giant. Because if you shock somebody twice, you can then cast this for 1 and a red. It's a 6/6 with trample, and it says, whenever a source you control deals non-combat damage to an opponent, Chandra's Incinerator deals that much damage to target creature or planeswalker that player controls. So it lets you double up on all your burn spells. So like you can go to face with your direct damage spells, and then Chandra's Incinerator does it to all their creatures or their planeswalkers or, whatever. And the other big thing that I'm running in this is 4 of Leyline Tyrant, which is a 4/4 dragon for 4 mana. It has flying, and it says you don't lose unspent red mana as steps and phases end. So if you tap a land for red mana, you get to keep that indefinitely for as long as Leyline Tyrant's on the board. And then it says, when Leyline Tyrant dies, you may pay any amount of red mana. When you do, it deals that much damage to any target. So
yeah, basically at the end of your opponent's phase, or end of their turn, you can be like, all right, tapping all this mana, and you're holding on to it.
Yeah. And then if Leyline Tyrant dies, you can turn all that red mana directly into damage and just kill your opponent with that. So the reason that I'm running Leyline Tyrant in this is because of the last card that I'll talk about, which is Kazul's Fury, So this is one of the double-faced flip cards from Zendikar Rising. So one side is an instant, the other side is a land. So when you're not ready for the spell and you need a land, you can play it as a land. But the real reason it's here is because it's an instant for 2 and a red. As an additional cost to cast this spell, sacrifice a creature. Kazul's Fury deals damage equal to the sacrificed creature's power to any target. So you throw down Leyline Tyrant, you tap out all your red mana, and then you cast Kazul's Fury and throw the Leyline Tyrant at your opponent, dealing 4 damage to it, and then a damage for all of the red mana that you put into that you tapped out and had holding with Leyline Tyrant. It's fucking delicious. I love that combo so much. You just, dump all your mana and throw your dragon, and it just fucking explodes in your enemy's face, and it's hilarious.
All right.
Probably gonna like rejigger things a little bit. I don't know what the right balance between like putting creatures on board and like dealing direct damage is. Like one thing that I should have in here is Torbrand, Thane of Redfell, which is a legendary creature that like doubles the damage caused by any red source that you control.
Mm-hmm.
So like your shocks would do 4 damage for 1 mana, which seems pretty good.
Would that be for all the spells after it, or would that be just
if
one
Torbrand
spell?
is on the board, anything that you have that is red that deals damage deals twice as much damage.
And it's not
so
just
if your creatures deal combat damage,
mm-hmm.
If your creatures deal combat damage, it's doubled. So like this can get really out of hand with Embercleave. Actually, like the version of the deck that I run on Arena, like I run 4 of Torbrand and 4 of Embercleave because I'm a scumbag. So
also wild cards forever.
Yeah, I don't know. There's like a few other cards that I run in it, but like I don't know. I've been talking about it for a really long time, so it's fun. It's pretty good deck.
Okay. Well, I was actually comparing your deck list basically to the mono red aggro challenger deck that they have, and they do run 3 the Torbrand, Bone Crusher Giant's a big one too. Mm-hmm. That one's the adventure one, which that's a solid card. Yeah. So a lot of similarities. You just got a lot more spice in there.
Yeah, I don't know. I've played it quite a bit and kind of landed on a version of it that I like a lot. Like I said, the Chandra's Incinerator is just kind of like, it's not great. It doesn't see very much play, but like, I just like the idea that you can kind of cheat out a big thing by dealing damage, which is what you want to do anyway.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, if you can deal 5 non-combat damage to somebody, you can just cast it for 1 mana.
Man. Uno mana.
All right. Let's talk about Time Spiral. Time Spiral Remastered's a thing. It's coming out. We got some cards spoiled. Did you look through the list?
I looked through most of the list.
I looked through the blue-white that was released, I think, yesterday?
Yeah, so the cool thing about Time Spiral is, like, they did a thing back then called time-shifted cards, which is like, this is what we think cards might look like in the future or whatever. So now they're doing, like, time-shifted cards that, they're using, like, the old frame. Mm-hmm. So there's, like, stuff that came out in Lorwyn or Innistrad or Kamigawa that like they're now in the old card frames that look really cool. The one that I want to talk about is True Name Nemesis, which is a merfolk rogue for 1 blue. As True Name Nemesis enters the battlefield, choose a player. True Name Nemesis has protection from the chosen player, and it's a 3/1.
Yep.
So you can just block with it indefinitely, and like nobody can do anything about it. Because like, if I'm playing against Bill, I'm like, okay, this thing comes out. It has protection from Bill, so like nothing Bill controls can interact with it.
That sounds like Bill as it is, so.
Oh man.
The reprinting Lab Man in the fucking old timey frame. This laboratory maniac is a human wizard originally from Innistrad that if you would draw a card while your library has no cards in it, you win the game instead. So the point of that is to deck yourself out and win by drawing from an empty library. I fucking love that card.
I feel like that's one card you just put in like any of your blue commander decks, and you just go, all right, I'm memeing on this. Here we go.
You've discovered my trap card, because I do that actually all the time.
Oh, I wasn't referring to you. That was more the royal you.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
I want to talk about Ponder here for a minute, because like
Ponder is really good.
What a card, man! Scry 3. Well, not really. It's technically Scribe, but it's not. It's just really worded.
You put them back on top, yeah.
Yeah, look at the top 3 cards of your library. Put them back in any order. You may shuffle your library. That's the most.
Yeah,
that's
so
the
if there's
part.
nothing that you want right now on there, you can just shuffle them up.
I feel like just saying Scry 3 would be almost better in general, and way less hassleness. But then you draw a card because, for 1 mana, why not be able to look at your entire deck and figure out what you want to draw?
Yeah. Honestly, like, if there was a card that just said pay 1 mana, shuffle your library, people would probably play it because it feels so fucking bad to get land screwed.
Oh, tell me about it.
Let's see. Ninja of the Deep Hours is getting put in the old frame. So it's a 2/2 human ninja for 3 and a blue. But it has ninjutsu for 1 and a blue. So what ninjutsu does is you get to return an unblocked attacking creature that you control, put it back to your hand, and you put Ninja of the Deep Hours onto the battlefield from your hand, tapped and attacking. And then whenever it deals combat damage to a player, you draw a card. So you just attack with some bullshit, whatever doesn't get blocked. Secretly was the ninja the whole time, and he reveals his true form and steals your opponent's shit, I guess, is like the flavor they're going for.
It's pretty nuts. Let's talk about the card next to it, Mystic Confluence. Choose 3. You may choose the same mode more than once. This is a 5 CMC, and it says counter target spell unless its controller pays 3. Return target creature to its owner's hand. Draw a card. So for 5 mana, you can draw 3 cards. You can return 3 cards to three
cards for
hand.
5 is a pretty low rate of return. I feel like the draw card is just there in case you don't need to do the other things more than once. But like,
yeah, but then you shouldn't be running, or you shouldn't be playing Mystic Confluence. Like countering a spell, like I think that's obviously the best part. I mean, even like unless its controller pays 3, I wonder if you could stack it and still be like, I counter this spell unless you pay 6. I don't know if that's how that would work.
Yeah, you absolutely can. Yeah, you can choose that mode and target the same spell with it.
So if it's like a board wipe and you have a quote unquote unbreakable board that would win you the game, and you were like, here, pay 9 mana also on top of this in order to board wipe me. Oh, you can't because Magic game only lasts 6 turns anymore.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, it's not the greatest rate of return because, like, if you're using it to counter a spell, like just regular old OG counter spell is 3 mana less and just says counter target spell with no condition, like it just happens. But like the reason you would want to use this is the flexibility. Like this, it fills 3 card slots in 1 card slot. Like it's never just gonna feel bad to cast this.
Right. And I feel like you could just hit all three of these. You can say, I want to counter a spell, I want to return a card, and I want to draw a card, and you'll be fine with that in most kind of situations.
Yeah. One that I'm really excited about is Ethereal Armor, which is an aura enchantment for 1 white. So you enchant a creature, and it gets +1/+1 for each enchantment you control and has first strike. It gets +1/+1 for each enchantment you control, Dan.
Uh-huh.
And it itself is an enchantment. So for 1 mana, you just give something +1/+1 in first strike. But the reason this is cool is because I like one of the decks that I'm looking to build probably here pretty soon is Pauper Bogles, which like Bogles is a creature from the Lorwyn block that like it's just a 1/1 for 1 mana that has hexproof. But it's basically like an enchantment tribal deck. So all your creatures have hexproof, so they can't be, destroyed or bounced or anything from your opponent's side of the board, and you just stack up a bunch of enchantments on them and make them huge. And Ethereal Armor is huge in that deck, and it looks really good in the old-timey classic frame.
I would say the card that stood out the most to me was Fibblethip. And that is because I feel lost when I'm playing Magic a lot, and I feel like Fibblethip is as well.
Yeah. I do appreciate that they just threw in the meme card there. Yeah, Fibblethip the Lost is a legendary creature. He's a 1/1 for 1 and a blue. When he comes into the battlefield, you draw a card. If it entered from your library or was cast from your library, you draw 2 cards instead. And when he becomes the target of a spell, you shuffle him into your library. And Fibblethip is great because he's just like a meme in the game that like he'll just show up in the background on a card's art or like on top of a statue, and it's just like, oh my god, how did he get there? And he's like, how did I get here? And then you're like, is that something we have to worry about? And your uncle tells you to just stay away from the coffee machine.
So we were mostly talking about stuff at the bottom of the page. I want to talk about Magus
all the
future.
time-shifted stuff. Yeah, there's some spicy stuff that's not getting the cool card frames, but yeah. So tell me about this, and then I'll tell you about something that I was kind of delighted to see on this list.
Yeah. So Magus of the Future, it's 2 colorless and 3 blues. You play with the top card of your library revealed, and you may play lands and cast spells from the top of your library. So by turn 5, you're playing this. You flip over the top card of your deck, and you go, okay, let's see. Oh, I can play counter spells. Like it's essentially having like an extra card in your hand at all times.
Yeah, or it's basically as good as like draw an extra card every turn,
right?
Which is really good. Yeah, I like that a lot. It does let your opponent see what's going on and what you might be playing, but like, unless they're also in blue, like, what the fuck are they gonna do about it?
Right. It's turn 5. Like, if by turn 5 they don't know what you're playing, I question them.
I was really excited to see Pact of Negation in this set, which
oh yeah.
I don't know if it was in the original Time Spiral, because I didn't play the game during the original Time Spiral. It probably was, but like it's printed at rare. Like, I'm glad they didn't upshift it to Mythic, because seeing as how I already pre-ordered a box, I'll probably own a copy of this card soon. But it's 0 mana counter target spell. At the beginning of your next upkeep, pay 3 blue. If you don't, you lose the game. I kind of like this. Like, I think it's kind of spicy since it's 0 mana to cast it. Is just like run it in all of your decks just as an emergency like gambit. So like if it comes back around to your turn and you can't pay the 3 blue, you lose the game, obviously. But like if you're about to win the game and somebody's gonna do something that's gonna stop you from winning the game, you just play it, counter the spell, and then win the game. Like,
Right.
if you kill your opponent before you have to pay the 3 blue, you still win the game. So,
How many people do you think are going to play that and not realize they couldn't get the 3 blue, or the blue 3?
A lot of people in bronze and silver.
yeah. Well, I mean, that's the thing is, like, this set's not going to be on Arena. This is a paper-only product.
Yeah, suck it, Bill.
Oh, man.
But I think some of the cards are getting put on for Historic, but I don't know.
Sierra Avenger looks interesting. It's a 2...
Sarah
it's a 2
Avenger's
white.
pretty good. It's white for a 3/3 Flying Vigilance Angel. And
You have to cast it on
says
turn
you
4
can't.
or greater.
Yeah.
Well, no, you can cast it on turn 2. Or yeah, okay, yeah, you have to. I see what it actually says now.
Right.
I thought you could play it and then like it would prevent you from casting spells, but yeah, you can't cast this spell during your first, second, or third turns of the game. But still, I mean, that's good value. That's good returns.
Well, right. It's still a 3/3 for 2, and then you can still play something else on turn 4.
Yeah.
But it's also got flying and vigilance.
Right.
So it's I just feel like it's amazing return, in my opinion, even though you have to wait till turn 4.
Yeah, the only problem is waiting till turn 4, because by that time your opponent can have a board set up where it's like putting Sarah Avenger on the board doesn't help you in any way, shape, or form. Like, it doesn't help you to have it block, it doesn't help you to have it attack, it just kind of is there. But I mean, I guess that could be said about most cards, so.
I was gonna say, because like a lot of times when I'm playing, like turn 4 or 5, you're still not getting anything that's really greater than a 3.
Yeah.
Or at least most of the time that I've seen.
Well, if you build your deck right and you're playing mono red, you don't get to turn 5, so you don't have to worry about it.
Listen here now. I think we've had enough spice out of you.
I am happy to see Pongify get reprinted. I like that card. It's a blue card that says destroy target creature. It's 1 blue for an instant, destroy target creature. It can't be regenerated. Its controller creates a 3/3 green ape creature token.
That one, yeah. That one was interesting.
I think it's interesting because, like, I don't know, destroying creatures isn't something that blue does. So, like, it's one of those
the
weird
card
corner
art
cases. Yeah, it's just like a soldier who got turned into a chimpanzee.
You damn dirty apes.
I was gonna say it looks like it belongs in Planet of the Apes.
Yeah, it looks like Caesar.
Yeah,
I don't know
kind of.
about that. That's a lot of teeth for Caesar.
There's a lot of teeth. It's actually a horrifying amount of teeth.
Yeah. I don't know. What else are we doing here? I'm just kind of having fun talking to my bros. I don't care. We didn't really have an agenda here. We'll kind of figure out what this show is at some point. Yeah. Looks like a cool set. That's it. We talked about Time Spiral. Is there anything you guys else you want to mention about it? Those were kind of the cards that stood out to me, so I don't know.
Yeah, I got nothing else.
All right,
just Ponder, man. I remember the good old days when I first played and Ponder was the thing. I was like, how is this card allowed in this game?
Yeah. Seems pretty good. I guess the only thing left to do is talk about Caleb's card of the week. So this week I'm going to be telling you about Tortured Existence, an enchantment for 1 black from Stronghold. So this is an older card, and it says, pay a black, choose and discard a creature card. Return target creature card from your graveyard to your hand.
Uh-huh. So please tell me how this can be made into an infinite combo.
All right. So Dredge is a thing. Dredge is an old mechanic and probably one of the most powerful mechanics that ever got printed. So I like also this card was printed at common, so it's cheap. And like honestly, they like I feel like this was before they really figured out what they wanted to do regarding power levels of cards. Like I feel like if this was printed now, it would be at least a rare. Because just for as much black mana as you have, you can just cycle creature cards from between your hand and your graveyard. So I run this in a deck with Spore Frog, which is a creature for 1 green that you can sacrifice to prevent all combat damage that would be dealt this turn. So that right there just makes you unkillable.
Mm-hmm.
As I said, like, you run it with a bunch of dredge creatures and stuff in your hand. So, like, dredge is a mechanic that, like, you know, it'll say, like, dredge 3. It's like dredge in some number. So, like, if it has dredge 3, if you would draw a card, instead of drawing a card, you can put 3 cards from the top of your deck into your graveyard to return the dredge card from your graveyard to your hand. So the one card that I use in the Tortured Existence deck is Golgari Brownscale, which is a creature that whenever it goes from your graveyard to your hand, you gain 2 life. So you dredge it every turn, put it in your hand, gain 2 life. Then you Tortured Existence it back into your graveyard for something that you want to take out of your graveyard and cast, usually your Spore Frog, so you can just draw the game out indefinitely, gain a ton of life, and be a scumbag and lose all of your friends. Tortured Existence is very strong. That deck is frankly stupid and like very hard to deal with. So,
and then of course, after you deck out because you've used every card in your deck, you play Laboratory Maniac, and then you win the game.
Well, you might think so, except for the one card that I run in the deck. So, the thing that you put in there to keep you from decking yourself out with this constant dredging is Battlefield Scrounger. So, for 3 green, it is a centaur creature. It's a 3/3, and it has Threshold. Put 3 cards from your graveyard onto the bottom of your library. Battlefield Scrounger gets +3/+3 until end of turn. Play this ability only once each turn. So if you're gonna deck yourself, you use that ability and put 3 more things from your graveyard into your deck.
Okay.
So and you can do that once per turn to always keep from decking yourself out and just keep the scumbag bullshit going. It's a really fun deck. it's fun for me
you.
and for nobody else. Yeah. I don't know. I also like the idea that like my Pauper deck, which like Pauper is a format that uses only commons. It's like basically any common through the history of the game, like any card that was ever printed at common is legal in the format. But like my Pauper deck can beat everybody else's standard deck that they paid like $300 for, and that just makes me smile.
Those are always the best.
Goodness.
All right, so that's Tortured Existence.
What a card.
Yay!
I'm so glad they figured out how to actually start balancing cards until Scavenging Ooze came along, and then they released that one broken card, and then the game was lost forever.
Oh man, I really want to make a deck based around that just to make Dan mad.
Well, I'll let you know
Assault
that
is real. I don't know. That card's okay.
I mean, now that I've cycled off of cycling for now, that card's whatever. That card has no effect on Azorius control whatsoever. So
Yeah, because you can just counter
Until it does.
or destroy it or exile
Right.
it.
yeah, there is so much target exile in that deck,
Yeah.
and worst comes to worst, you just board wipe it.
My goodness.
Trying to remember what my sign off was going to be. Damn it.
Tap all your lands. Mana burn yourself.
Yeah.
The mana, it burns.
Well, that was an old school mechanic.
I wish mana burn was still a thing.
Bill, mana burn was that any untapped, like any tapped lands that you had, or any tapped mana that you had that you did not use,
any unspent mana that you had would deal that much damage to you at the end of your turn if you didn't spend that mana.
What?
Yep. When you would use that, I don't know, but it did come up sometimes.
Yeah, well, there were like a lot of infinite mana generators way back in the game. There was also a thing called cumulative upkeep, where like it would be like cumulative upkeep, pay 1 mana, and if you can't, sacrifice this thing. But like it was cumulative, so like it would be 1 the first time, and then like the second turn it would be 2, then the third turn it would be 3, and it would go on and on. But there was a card called, I think it was Braid of Fire, which was cumulative upkeep, gain 1 red mana. So like you would get 1 red mana, then 2, then 3, then 4, then 5, then 6. So it ramps you up super hard, but if you don't have something to spend that mana on, you take damage for it. And then they got rid of cumulative upkeep, and that became one of the best red cards ever. Because you just play it, and you get more and more and more and more and more red mana forever and ever for always.
10 seasons, forever, red mana.
100 years, braidofire.com. But alright, so sorry the show has no format. I hope you come back next week, where we surely will have figured out everything that we're doing and be very, very good at this. And also I will be talking about Bant Party. So until next week, in response, I bolt myself.